Hey, what's up, y'all? Kayla Jolyn here. I had to pop on today because today, February 28th, marks 1 year since I walked away from my dental position. 1 full year. Like, it's crazy. And as I've been thinking about it throughout the course of the day, it's like, part of me is like, I can't believe it's been a year already, and the other half of me is like, also, dang, it's been a year. Like, it's been a year. And I found myself watching my old video from February 28th, 2023, just kind of seeing how I was feeling like fresh off of work, because I recorded in my car like as soon as I left the office. But now as I just sit here, it's just like, I guess I just find myself in awe of God and in awe of, the things that He's been teaching me in this season. This season that I'm in, I call this my wilderness season, right? It's been a season of literally following God's lead, cloud by day, fire by night. Like, wherever He goes, I go. What He tells me to do, I do. So 9 times out of 10, you can find me somewhere between doing art or doing ministry, and having Bible studies and stuff. But like, even that, looking back, to a year ago, I would have never thought. Like, I didn't know what God had planned, but I didn't think that that was a part of it. And yet it is. And it's so beautiful to see how everything is blossoming, And I think if I had to pick like the biggest thing or the main thing that I've learned over this last year, as far as, stepping out to do something new and stepping out to follow God, is that, you just have to follow where the glory goes. Just like, back in the Bible, when they're walking through the wilderness, they literally went wherever the cloud went. If the cloud stopped for a day, they stopped for a day. If it stopped for a week, they stopped for a week. If it stopped for a month or a year, they stopped. But when that cloud picked up and began to move, they followed where the cloud went. And I feel like that's pretty much been my year. It's like whatever God has me to put my hand to, like He'll give me the grace to do that thing. And then when it's time to move on to the next thing, or His grace moves on to the next thing, then I just follow His lead. And I think the main struggle with that is because with dentistry, I was so attached to that, and that was like a part of my identity, that like when I stepped away from that and was just following God, I felt so, just unattached to anything, because my identity wasn't found in dentistry anymore. And even though I do art, my identity isn't found in art. It's like, I feel like there's many things that God will call me to do, but my identity isn't found in any of those things. And I think the biggest takeaway is that that's the point. That's the point. Like, when God shifts you from one thing to the next, it's not so that you can find your identity in that next thing and wrap yourself up in that. It's so that you can realize that your identity is only found in Him. First and foremost, you're His daughter. You're His son. And that's what our identity has to be rooted in. And that's something that He's really been teaching me throughout this whole process. It's like, yeah, you did dentistry, but that's not who you are. Yes, you do art, but that's not who you are. Even with ministry or doing Bible studies, with women, like, that's still not even who you are. Who you are is my child. And everything else that I do or put my hands to flows from that. Everything. And I think there's such beauty and such freedom in that. But as you're going through the process, sometimes that can feel scary because it feels like too much freedom. It feels like you're free falling because you don't know what you should be doing all the time. And sometimes what you should be doing is nothing. It's resting. It's spending time with God so He can continue to show you who you are and can continue to speak life into you and renew you in ways that you didn't even know you needed. Part of the process and being in the wilderness and in these in-between seasons where you're not quite where you were and yet you're not where God is sending you is like to focus on who God called you to be. Not what He called you to do, but who He called you to be. And as you begin to wrap your mind around just the identity and knowing who you are and whose you are, everything else will begin to flow from that so effortlessly. There's such a peace and such a grace that you will have, to do all the things that God calls you to put your hands to, and all the, ideas and desires that he places in your heart, you'll be able to do because you know who you are. You're not going to be rocked and shaken by, all the things. And your identity is not going to be wrapped up in what you do. It's going to be wrapped up in who he is and who he's called you to be. This year that has gone by has been, one of many lessons. I feel like the whole purpose of this year was just, God was teaching me lesson after lesson after lesson in the wilderness. And I know that the lessons that he's teaching me now are things that I'm going to need later. When he elevates me to different positions or calls me to do new things, I will need every lesson that he's teaching me now. A year from now, I didn't know how things would be now. I didn't know if I would be fully into what God was leading me into, or, whatever. We have these ideas and we think we'll be like, I don't know where we'll think. We just have these ideas of what will happen. And sometimes God is like, I got to take my time. I got to take my time and cultivate you. I've got to take my time and be patient with you so that I don't overwhelm you. Like right now, a year later, I still don't see the full picture. I still don't have the full scope of all that God is doing in my life. And, sometimes it can be frustrating, but for the most part, it's exciting because I know it's something good. I know he's planned good things for me. And I know I get to be a part of it because I'm willing to surrender my will, my want, my way, my timing to his. So even now, a year later, I'm still in the process. I'm still in those wilderness seasons where I'm following God day by day. Wherever he leads me is where I go. What he asks me to put my hands to is what I do. And when he tells me to stand still and to rest, that's what I do too. So if I could impart any encouragement to any of you who may be in a season where you've stepped out of the thing that you used to do, and you are stepping into and have stepped into the thing that God is calling you into, a season of following him, a season of, renewing your identity, knowing who you are and whose you are, I encourage you to stick with it. I encourage you, to keep going, to keep resting in him, and knowing that the fact that you are his means everything.